Now, in these stormy days, many of us don't go a day without checking the weather. We have it on the phone, we watch it on TV, we're just checking what the weather is ahead.
Yes, but how did they figure it all out years ago before weather stations were even a thing? Bringing us some of the ancient customs of weather forecasting. We are always delighted to have Folklore Shane Lahan. Dear the Master Shane, always great to have you. Before we chat about that, Cohordigos, congratulations.
Oh, thanks very much. Well, I'm delighted. I was part of a fantastic publication, the Irish Food History Companion. One of 30 contributors, I have to say, but I wrote one on the history of honey and beekeeping in Ireland, and
Brilliant.
we're delighted. We won the An Post Award, so Martine McNumara and Dorothy and everyone,
Well done.
we're all delighted with that.
It sounds like a lovely book.
Oh, it's a
And the
fantastic
history of
book.
food is such a big thing. And I know you love bees and you've got a lot to say about that and you make your own honey. So it's wonderful.
That's it. But you know, it's about the weather today, lads.
Yes.
You know, I'm looking at it.
We're
Isn't
talking
it-
about
isn't
history
it-
of the weather.
Isn't it up and down? Isn't it? We have storms, we have snow, it's warm, it's all of those sort of things, you know. And you're quite right, Dolly, you know. People in the past had we all listened to the weather forecast, we're all hanging on to it because it's kind of an Irish obsession.
Oh, yeah,
you know.
total obsession.
But long ago they had none of that, and they had all these phrases, you know, that were there. I think one of my favourite ones is when soot falls down and spaniels sleep and spiders from their cobwebs creep. There's going to be rain. Now, that you might, it's a beautiful one in its own way because you know the old dog is in by the fire
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the
Yeah.
spiders are coming out and all of that. But sure, look, you it wouldn't be wrong because 2 days, 2 out of every 3 days in Ireland, it rains.
Does
It's a
it? Is that
terrible-
the stat?
It's an awful statistic. I was on to Mate Aaron and I was writing about the weather, and you know they came back to me and said that's actually the statistic that we have. So it's a tough one to have.
And you know what's funny? I remember when I moved to Dublin first from Inishmore, and I really noticed the weather was quite different.
Yeah.
And the stat there is that half the rainfall in Dublin, half of what you'd get on the west coast of Ireland.
But it sometimes goes over the island
does.
Laura, as well, and you'd miss it. So,
Yeah.
but there's so many other things. You know, people used to love the fireplace. They'd look up, they'd go out and they'd look at the chimney. They'd see what direction the smoke was going
Yeah.
on. You know, and with that they'd know whether the wind was coming from the east, and that was the kind of direction that was there. You know, that's
Yeah.
my own chimney at home.
Is that
you know?
right? You were checking the weather
or
yourself.
whether there was a downdraft. You know, that
Yeah.
would also tell you what was going to go on. And there was all sorts of things when people would leave the hens out long ago. You know, one of the things is that like if the hens were a bit slow to come out, yeah, they'd know that the weather was going to be bad. But if they all came running out and they were out for the day,
Brilliant, I love it.
Maybe if they came all back into the coop fairly early in the day,
Yeah.
as well, you knew that there was something wrong. You know.
But even if you look at, say, some of the seaboard, sometimes they can be 10 or 12 miles inshore.
That's
and
right.
You're asking yourself, what's a seagull doing there? Because it's bad weather out at sea.
But animals all know they've got
Yeah.
that extra sense. It's when there are things like tsunamis or massive weather events all over the world, animals take to the high ground.
But listen, this is it. And I was really intrigued about this ability to tell the weather because we had an amazing event back in the 19th century. And I need to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
This was the night of the big wind.
Yeah.
And it took place on the 6th of January, 1839. And if you think about it, that we call that, of course, Women's Little Christmas. And
Ian
the
Old
peace-
Naman.
Ian Old Naman, the Epiphany and so on. Often people thought the 12 days of Christmas were the 12 months of the year. And they also felt that the very last day of that could be the last day of the world. Now, that's an important idea to keep in mind. On the eve of this, on the few days before, on say the 4th of January, it actually snowed, okay? And people were making snowmen, they were doing all that. When it came up to the 6th itself, what happened is that it got unnaturally warm. Some accounts say it went up to 20 degrees. The
My God.
snow melted, okay? It became clammy and nobody knew what was going on. They were absolutely confused. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it started to rain. By 6 o'clock, it was a full storm. It was going crazy. But by 9 o'clock, and listen to this, probably the single biggest meteorological event that we've ever had. It was a force 12 plus hurricane, okay, at category 4. Category 4 meant it wasn't just a gust, it kept blowing the entire night until 6 o'clock the following morning. People thought the end of the world had come.
This is it.
And what happened, and listen to this, every single roof practically on every thatched house in Ireland were people
So it was
see-
as wild as this.
Oh, it
Yeah.
absolutely.
Isn't that it now? But it was as wild as
But
this.
literally,
Yeah,
ships were wrecked. The entire fishing fleets were smashed to smithereens on the rocks. Okay. On top of that, every single thatched house in Ireland practically was blown off.
My God.
Roof and timbers and the whole lot.
Everything.
Okay. On top of that, what happened if they weren't blown off? The embers of the fires were blown up, and fire destroyed
Oh my God.
everything. 2 million trees in the large domains, the big estates. They were knocked over, uprooted. Chimneys were blown off. It was colossal. And it wasn't just the West Coast, it was the entire country. Now, what was amazing about that was that people, it was the precursor to the famine. 1839 that happened, 1845. It fed into people's imaginations because they had no meteorological system. They had no way of explaining where it had come from or anything of that sort.
So you can imagine mythology now feeding into this then as well.
It's absolutely huge. And it stayed in people's memory and it's still spoken about, Dahi. And this is the best part, okay? 70 years after that, in 1909, the British government introduced the old age pension. Okay, so the old age pension, anyone over 70 years of age got money. Okay, and what happened is everyone in Ireland, of course, applied for the old age pension. Okay, and they came over to work out. We had no official record of birth before 1960 or before 1864, 1865. So what happened was the way of checking it out was they'd be quizzed on if they remembered the night of the big wind.
That is amazing.
70 years before. So it was that part of their memory that was there. And it was incredible, really.
Isn't it unbelievable?
It is.
But it is something that, as you said, I mean, it's so weird. We talk about global warming now, but
Yeah.
we've not had an event to that dramatic sense, as Shane said.
But you know, so I think it's interesting that people long ago, they would really, they knew the weather was going to be bad in the winter. So what they nearly did was they nearly hibernated, right? They nearly went in, and there was a great tradition always of who were the 7 sleepers, right? 7 sleepers in folklore were the 7 animals that hibernated over the winter. There was people thought the corncrake hibernated. Now that wasn't the case, but in their own heads, when the corncrake went and came back.
But they just went away,
There was the bat, the leather wing bat that was there. In addition to that, there was fantastic. I have them here. There was, I think, the ant was involved. In addition to that, there was the wasp, the bee, the badger. But my favourite is the gronog, is the hedgehog. And the reason I'm so interested in hedgehog is because not too long ago I was cleaning up the leaves at the back of the house and I looked down into the shore and what did I find down at the bottom of the shore but a small little hedgehog. There he was. So I got on my gloves.
Do you have a name for him?
No, I've no name for him. But
So where is he in a little
so I put on the gloves and I pulled him up, right? And he was looking up at me. And as ye both know, gronog means the ugly one. But I never saw anything more beautiful.
Grown, I think,
I think they're the cutest things ever.
They are, and I got really interested in the hedgehogs.
So what did you do with him?
So what I did is I made a little house for him, right, up in the fields, a few stones and a few boards, and I put leaves in. I put the hedgehog in, was delighted. I went up the following day. He had headed off anyway to his own little place. But what I really love about it is the hedgehogs at the moment now are hibernating. They're in those little clusters. And we'll get through to the next end of this. We'll come to Bridget's Day, which goes the 1st of February. But the second is Candlemas. And you know, in America...
What is it? Candlemas?
Candlemas,
we had Michaelmas before, I remember that.
Yeah, the second is Candlemas. It's the feast of the candles and
when
so on.
When is that? What day is that?
The 2nd of February.
The 2nd of February. Candlemas.
Yeah, but in the rest of the world, particularly in America, of course, it's called Groundhog Day. And I always think that groundhog and gronog are much the same.
Very similar,
And they're very similar. And you have your man over in Pennsylvania, is it Puxatawney or whatever? The groundhog that comes out. But in Ireland, when the hedgehog comes back out, and when there's going to be good weather and so on, and we have the end of the inclement weather that
That's so interesting, because the groundhog is what determines the weather there.
Yes.
But Shane, what about things like, I remember my dad used to always say, red sky at night, shepherd's delight, red sky in the morning, shepherd's morning.
Yeah, I've another version for you. The evening red and the morning grey are said to be signs of a very fine day. The evening grey and the morning red bring down the rain on the traveller's head. So exactly the same. And the reason for that is because what happened is that when you have the high pressure, the high pressure condenses down all the particles, so you get that lovely glow of particles in the red and so on, and the opposite occurs at the other time of the day. So that will tell us whether good weather is coming or bad weather is coming. So you have those observations.
Shane, we mentioned Michaelmas there, which is the 29th of September. What is this goose breastbone?
Okay, so we always had the goose at Michaelmas on the 29th, and what happened is that when they're after eating the goose, you know, the breastbone of the goose, it's rather flat and solid. There you have it there. And people would always do a little bit of weather prediction coming up to Christmas and after Christmas. So the dividing line was down the middle, that was Christmas, we'll say. The first half of the year you'd hold it up to the light, and if it was any bit kind of opaque, and if it was a bit cloudy or whatever and dark, you'd have good weather, and then the other side was going to be the weather following the Christmas as well. So you had all of these sort of unusual ways of
And
predicting.
Shane, were there different people in different communities? Because I know there's a man at home called TPO Conachore.
That's right.
He'd predict the weather or what the summer would be
Yeah.
like. I know there was another man up in Donegal as well who used to do it.
Yeah.
Was there people in every community
Oh,
to do it?
I think so, and I think what happened is that they had all their own local signs. You know, they knew exactly what was happening in
Like
an
the
area.
moon and stuff as well. They'd be looking at things like that.
The moon, when there was the Sul na Cearc on rain, the hen's eye around the moon, and there was a great one in terms of that, and it was near ring, far rain, or far ring, near rain. So people used to look at the ring
rain.
around the moon, and you would get that idea as to whether it was going to rain or not. But in fact, you were nearly always right that it was going to rain. As I say, it would. But to be able to predict the weather in any way further than the present or the next day or two or whatever really isn't the case in Ireland.
We should give Francis Beaufort, of course, a shout out.
yes, Beaufort
The
scale.
Emperor
Oh,
of
yeah.
Beaufort
And
scales from Navan.
interesting. Absolutely, he was born in Navan. Okay, he went off and he joined the navy, and he was the first guy to give us that regulation of the wind forces and so on at sea, and that became then the official. I think 1838, the night before or the year before the night of the big wind.
wind.
Big wind, yeah.
He gave us the Beaufort scale. It was adopted by the British Navy.
Shane, just before you go, just before we go, Billy Duggan, do you have a connection to this date back in the 1800s, back in
So that's it.
1848?
Okay. So a lot of people were changing their ages and changing their dates to try and get the old age pension in 1909. But I have laid claim to my great grandfather. Okay.
This is
here he
him.
is. This is Billy
That's
here.
fantastic.
Yeah. So here's Billy from Kilnamartyr. He was born in the year 1801. Would you believe that?
My God.
1801, and he lived to 112 years of age.
What?
112 years of age, and he's from Derrynthalker in Kilnamartyr, and he would have been my grandfather's mother's father, okay, and he would have lived through all of those.
He survived the big
He
wind.
survived the famine, the big
famine.
winds, the whole lot, and he came up, and I suppose on the census, Dahi,
Yeah.
in 1911, he put down old age pensioner because he had got the pension,
Yeah.
and he was probably the most.
So he died in 1913, so.
That's right. He died in 18. I said 1801,
yeah.
1803 to 1915. Sorry, that's
1915.
yeah,
My God.
unbelievable.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And did he leave good history behind? Or
Well,
did he-
here I am. I expect
No,
to live.
obviously you're the living proof of it. Any written
genes.
history.
That's it. You know, I'm going to live forever.
And did he
as you
talk
know.
about? Do you remember? Did he write anything down,
No,
or did
but
anyone
people
talk
still,
about
people
him?
still out in Kildamartyr say, you know, if you live as long as Billy Duggan.
Yeah,
you know,
so he's kind of Bale
he's-
Edges now.
Yeah.
He's part of the tradition, and he made it onto the newspaper. So I was so delated to get a photograph.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
like-
Shane,
oh my God.
the people that come behind us on this show, after us on this show, will be interviewing you in 50 years' time. We'll be laughing.
Shane
Shane,
Durmont,
thanks.
No,
Absolutely lovely.
Absolutely
Brilliant as always. We love listening to
yeah.
you.
Now, still to come, one of